wherever you are today and wherever you are on your spiritual journey, you are welcome here. We welcome to our service today Reverend Karen G. Johnston. She was ordained to the Unitarian Universalist Ministry in 2016 after 2 decades as a clinical social worker. Though she did not grow up as a UU, she found her first spiritual home, which she has since combined with a strong love of the Dharma and a spiritual practice of befriending death. She is the president of the board of the Lost Souls Public Memorial Project and the founder of Date with Death Club, a chance to explore mortality in community. She is so thankful for this opportunity to be here in Birmingham. To all who are here this morning, welcome home. We appreciate your attention to this morning's announcements. You'll find announcements in our order of service or on the slides for those of you at home. If you require accommodations during our service this morning, our ushers are available to assist. We have several adult enrichment programs and volunteer needs coming up. Please indicate your interest on the connection card. Your connection card is one of the best ways to communicate with us. Our stewardship campaign is in full swing, and we hope you have made plans to join us on Zoom on April 22nd for our celebration. Pledge forms are in your email, and paper forms are available by indicating on your connection card. We appreciate your support of our church. Thank you to all who have donated or delivered water for the folks at Uniontown to have clean water. We donated 75 cases of water to the cause. Next week is Easter Sunday, and we have a host of exciting events planned, including an interactive worship service with flower communion, a canned food hunt, actor Ed Bagley Jr. talking with us about the environment, and a photo booth. Please bring a flower or two for the ritual, and for those who join us online, please send your flower photo to office@uucbham.org. Please also bring your canned goods for the hunt that will refill our pantry. We look forward to celebrating Easter with you. We also have a special announcement. The playground, Melanie? No? Okay, playground announcement. Oh, Laura's gonna do it.
Oh, it's just some time. All right, so I'm Laura Baker. Some of you know me as Lily, Leo, or Sylvia's mom. And I'm not used to using a microphone, I guess. I'm Laura Baker, and I'm a little bit taller than Kylie. Oh, hold it? Okay. And I'm here to give the playground update from the Playground Committee. I've been serving on the Playground Committee this past year, and we've been working to restore the equipment that was taken down last summer. And many of you are probably wondering when the equipment is coming back, especially those of you who are under the age of 12. So I'm here to provide a quick update on what's been going on. Our group is small but mighty. We consist of Amethyst, Vineyard, Courtney McKinney, and Trey Tarrant, and myself. And we've been meeting over the past year to put a new plan together for new equipment. And we have picked out equipment, and we have gotten a quote, and it's from an Alabama company called Willie Goat. And this quote has been approved by the board. And we've been hoping, we were hoping actually, that our playground equipment provider would also provide some site planning services, but we found out that they did not. And it took a little while to figure that out, so that was sort of our delay and why there's not currently equipment in place. But I recently put on my surveyor's cap and tapped my architectural skills that I didn't know I had, and just assessed the site myself and drew up a site plan, and I've been working with that with the committee. So that was kind of fun to figure out how to do a scale drawing. Our playground site is a bit quirky. So I don't know if any of you have been out there, but it's on a slope, and it also has a lot of trees and a sidewalk in the middle of it. So it makes it a little bit challenging to put some things down, like a big swing set. So we've just realized that in the very near past that some of our equipment that we picked out is not going to work. So we're in the process now of picking out some new things that will go with our site so that we don't have to go out there and dig and level and cut down trees and take up pieces of concrete. So that's where we're at right now, and we're going to continue to meet over the next few months until the equipment's in place. We're hoping to have it in place by this summer, and we'll continue to meet after that. We hope to continue to fundraise and add more fun things to the playground, such as maybe a drinking fountain, which doesn't sound fun, but it sounds convenient to me. Maybe a tree house, a climbing wall, some picnic areas, and Courtney's got a wish for an outdoor classroom. So we hope to keep working on those things. Thanks so much for your time, and just find me if you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Laura. And now the prelude prepares us for worship. Please rise and body your spirit for the lighting of the chalice. Borrowing the words used at the congregation, our guest minister serves. We light this chalice here in the sanctuary and you at home, recognizing it is a light in dark times, a beacon of hope in hard times, a signal of resistance against evil, and symbol of our Unitarian Universalism. In the spirit of inclusivity and welcome, please take the next few moments to greet those around you, especially those who you may not recognize.
Please be seated. Be together again. What a joy for me to be able to be here with you, to share these opening words that come to us from the environmentalist Terry Tempest Williams. The eyes of the future are looking back at us, and they are praying for us to see beyond our own time. They are kneeling with hands clasped that we might act with restraint, that we might leave room for the life that is destined to come. To protect what is wild is to protect what is gentle. Perhaps the wilderness we fear is that pause between our own heartbeats, the silent space that says we live by grace. Wilderness lives by that same grace. Wild mercy is in our hands.
Good morning. I am very proud to be a member of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Birmingham. We have a long history of being on the right side of justice. But I have made a list of a few things that we've done over the last couple of years. And this is just off the top of my head, and it's not comprehensive. But we have been front and center in the protests over the George Floyd murder. We're supporters of Black Lives Matter. We have established and maintain a food pantry for the hungry. We provide Thanksgiving meals for needy families. We provide a place for organizations by letting them meet in our building, organizations that are like-minded, like Moms Demand Action, which is a anti-gun violence group. Did you know that this building is a polling place? If you live in this part of Birmingham, you come to the Unitarian Universalist Church to vote. The Justice Committee is always busy lobbying legislatures and writing Congress for justice-minded issues. We have been prominent in expressing our support for a woman's right to choose what happens to her own body. We very openly express our love for people who are struggling with their sexual identity, especially youth. We have sponsored Habitat for Humanity projects. And there are many more RE offerings and adult RE offerings. And this is not a complete list. It's just things that came to my mind. And although many of you, like me, are not highly visible in these projects, we're still full supporters of them, because we make our pledges and give our financial support to this church. This is our church. I want to ask you to do 3 things. Go to the all-church email and find the link where it says, fill out my pledge form. And then click the link and fill it out. It means so much to the staff and volunteers who are trying to get this done to plan the budget for next year. And give your support to the church. Give until you feel like you have full ownership of this church. This is your church. Thank you.
Good morning. Woo, sorry. My name is Kate Staub, and I am a member of the board. Like John was saying, our church is supported by those who call our church home and by those who support the efforts of our church to change this world for the better. If this is your first time with us today, you can simply pass the plate. We are just glad that you're here with us. If you wish to join our church this morning, Reverend Julie is not here, so the membership book is not available, but you can reach out to her via email. We share our cash plate every Sunday with organizations that support UU's values to care for marginalized people, advocate for real and systemic change, defend our environment, and promote justice and equity for all people. Our Share the Plate recipient for the month of April is GASP, which is a 501c3 environmental justice organization whose mission is to advance healthy air and environmental justice in the greater Birmingham area. And this is a really awesome organization. They do this through education, advocacy, and collaboration. So if you want to support the church or GASP this month, we appreciate your donations, either by just putting them in the plate or by sending them to Venmo. Our Venmo is at UUCBHAM, and you can also donate via Zelle, and that email address is office@uucbham.org. Please donate whether your offering is directly for the church or for GASP. Thank you for your generous support of our church and our Share the Plate recipient. May we give in love and in hope.
Now is the time in our community when we share what we carry with us on this day, joy or sorrow. For those of you online, please share yours in our online chat and remember to hold others by placing parentheses around their name. For those of you in person today, you are now invited to come forward and drop a stone in honor or memory of what is on your heart today. Please come forward. I dropped those final 2 stones for any other joys and sorrows among us today. Today we do lift up Kathy Taylor as she recovers. May we keep one another in our hearts and minds in the community, in the spirit of community and love as we go throughout this week.
To take this moment to listen to this spoken meditation that will be followed by a moment of our shared silence together. Let us slow into this space. Let us slow into this moment. Let us slow into these bodies. Let us find whatever breath there is to be found. Let us find our breath, and let our breath find us. Breathing in, however it is your body allows, and then a breath out. However it is your body allows. In and out, a connection to self, a connection to earth, a connection to all that is. This connection may bring pain, pain in body or pain because the world is crying out war, legislated hate, violence, misery, inequity, betrayal. May we remember that our pain is not enemy to our joy, not enemy to our happiness, but a pathway through. The only way out is through. When the world is on fire, when there is war in foreign lands, when there is gunfire here at home, waking within us helplessness, when someone we care for is struggling, when strangers and loved ones are treated less than, that we feel pain is a reminder that there is no separation. That we feel pain is a signal of our interconnection. That we feel pain alerts us to the presence of and our participation in the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. And it is this same connection that allows us to feel renewed, sometimes in surprising ways when we take in natural beauty, when we experience the creation of art, when we connect authentically with others. When we generate grace for others even when they don't seem to have deserved it. When we generate grace for ourselves even when we feel like we haven't deserved it. Or when we move these bodies, however these bodies move, whatever our shape or size or ability, all are miracles. It is this same connection propelling us to truth-telling even when the risks seem too high, propelling us to love more boldly even when it seems the price too dear, propelling us to show up even when we do not know what it is we are meant to do. Having found our breath, let us breathe. Having found our breath, let breath breathe us in and out, connecting to self, to earth, to all that is. Let us now share some moments of stillness together that our hearts may pray the prayers only they know until the chime rings again. Amen. I invite children in the RE program and children all ages to meet me down there. I have a story to share with you.
This works. Oh, that, you can hear me, right? So there was a time when I would have gotten down there with you, but unfortunately this body no longer gets up elegantly from the floor, and I don't mind being a fool for love, but I do mind being a fool in front of all of you this morning just for getting up off the floor. So, hi, I'm a guest, right? I'm not Reverend Julie. Reverend Julie's here usually, right? Or Courtney sometimes tells the stories. So I'm Karen, and I have a story to tell you. And it's actually not my story, but I'm going to tell it in my way. And it was written by someone named Sean Henrik Moore. And it's about a little kid who lives not that far away from here. But I need you all to tell part of the story with me. So I wonder if we could practice. Can you practice saying, "Your home is bigger"? Can we say it? 1, 2, 3. Your home is bigger. Okay. Can we share that job with everybody else who's in here? Can I ask them to help us too? Okay. So you all and you at home, I'm expecting you to be part of this too. When I say no, I'm going to ask you then to say, "Your home is bigger." Okay. Excellent. So this little kid who lives not that far away, she's going to sleep, but she hears this strange sound in her bedroom, and she turns on the light, and there's a mouse making a home in her bedroom. And she says, "You can't make your home here. This is my home." And the mouse says, "No." And she scratches her head, and she says, "What?" And then she goes out into the living room where she finds her cat named Nat. And she says, "Nat, is this my home?" And Nat says, "No." And she's still confused, but she decides, let's keep looking. It's the middle of the night, why not, right? That's what we do in the middle of the night. Not maybe, but okay, she does it. And so she goes out into her yard, and it's windy, and she speaks to the trees. I do that too. I took a hike on Red Mountain the other day, and I was speaking to the trees. I hope you speak to the trees. But she spoke to the trees, and she said, "Is this my home?" And the tree said, "No." Oh, this is really confusing, but she decides to keep going. And so where else did she go? My little cheat sheet tells me she went into town, and by this time it's raining, and the only things that are out, it's the middle of the night, are the pigeons. And she says to the pigeons, "Is this my home?" And they say, "No." Oh, so she has to go out even further. She goes out into the field where the sheep are, and she says, "Is this my home?" "No, your home is bigger. You have to keep going." And so she ends up in the rainforest where there are lots of mosquitoes, and they say, "Hey, welcome home." And she's like, "No, thanks. I'm pretty sure this is not my home." She keeps going, and she goes to a mountaintop where there used to be lots of snow, and there's only a little bit of snow there. And the snow leopard, who loves the snow, is in that little patch of snow. And she says, "Is this my home?" to the snow leopard. And the snow leopard says, "No." Oh, where else is she going to go? To the desert. She goes to the desert. She finds a lizard, and she says to the lizard, "Is this my home?" And the lizard says, "No." She gives up. She is like, "I have gone, I think, everywhere. Well, wait, one more place. I'll go to the ocean." She goes to the ocean. She encounters a whale who's hungry. And she says to the whale, "Whale, is this my home?" And the whale says, "No." She is really confused, and she is tired. It is the middle of the night. So she goes back to her room. It takes her a while to get all the way back to her bedroom, but somehow it happens. And she scratches her head, and she finds the mouse there, and she's like, "I'm really confused. I don't understand where my home is if this is not it." And the mouse says, "Your home is not your bedroom, and it's not your house. It's not your town. It's not even your country." What do you think the mouse is going to tell her is her home? Earth. The whole earth is her home. The whole earth is home to all those creatures and siblings she met. And the earth says, "You must be kind to your home. You must be kind to all of us." Thank you so much for listening to my story and helping me tell it. I think this is when we hum you to R-E. Is that right? Excellent.
Our reading today is called It's Time to Reclaim the Apocalypse by Chelsea McMillan. I often half-jokingly tell people I overcame my caffeine addiction because of the impending apocalypse. I figure if I'm running through the streets of New York City trying to figure out survival, I don't want to be dealing with a withdrawal headache. I have stopped expecting people to laugh with me when I tell them this. More often than not, they respond with a book of realization. Oh, they say, I never thought of that. Recently, I saw a tweet that said, retweet this if your retirement plan is basically, civilization will probably crumble before I'm 65, and money will be meaningless anyway. I've joked with my friends too about this very thing, as if we can all sense that one day, possibly soon, life as we know it will be gone. A post-apocalyptic dystopian future. But it doesn't have to be this way. In fact, in the original Greek, the word apocalypse means to uncover or unveil. Apocalypse is more of a revelation than the end of the world. Taken this way, not only can we reframe our relationship with this word, but we can also reclaim it. What would it mean to lift the veil on a world of separation and greed? What would it mean to strip away the lies of self-sufficiency and despair that pervade our collective consciousness? What if we understood the apocalypse to be a laying bare of anything that stands in the way of the truth of our interconnectedness? The truth is, the world is already changing. To reclaim the apocalypse means to admit that it is happening now.
I want to start with gratitude, the chance to be here with you this morning as your guest, the chance to learn from and with you. And I want to start with this poem from Lina Odell. If I can't save us, then let me feel you happy and safe under my chin. If this will drown or burn, then let us drink starlight, nap under trees, sing on beaches. The morning rush to sit indoors is what again? If we are dying, then let me rip open and bleed love. Spill it, spend it, see how much there is. The reward for misers is what again? If this life is ending, then let me begin a new one. In seminary, I took a whole semester's class solely dedicated to the book of Revelation, a special hell all of its own. This is one of the many ways you can discern that I did not go to one of the two Unitarian Universalist seminaries. I'm pretty sure they don't have whole semester classes on that, or any semester classes on that. But for those of you who don't know the book of Revelation, it's the last book in the Christian scriptures responsible for so many of our cultural reference points for the apocalypse, like the four horsemen. We sometimes attribute the rapture to there, but it's actually not in that book. I'm not quite sure where that came from. It is possible that I read too many dystopian novels, and it is true that I have strong opinions about the recent film adaptation of my favorite novel, Station 11. I don't know how you feel, but I won't argue that point. But I do not have a bunker filled with 2 years full of food. What is in my garage is only 3 months worth, and it turns out that that is actually the guidance of the Church of the Latter-day Saints, that they encourage all of their members to have, something I've learned along the way as I've dallied with what is a form of survival prepping on the left-wing side. I am more than curious about what it will take to survive, if not the apocalypse, then the approaching or perhaps already begun collapse, whether it is due to climate crisis or the steady slide towards authoritarianism throughout the world, or the convergence of both. I am deeply committed to cultivating personal and community connections to survive, not at any cost, because I actually find that an ultimately repugnant goal, but to build what Margaret Wheatley calls islands of sanity. Compassionate, resilient islands of sanity. And my guess, having heard the description of what you in your congregation do and have done for decades, you know what it is to be an island of respite and of justice here. I think of these islands of sanity that they just might be some of what we need to see us not just through the apocalypse, but beyond it. When you think about when you think about collapse, or what an imminent apocalypse might look like, I wonder what comes to your mind. Is it the spread of a novel virus that fells unfathomable numbers of humans? Is it the relentless melting of our polar ice caps in ways that lead scientists to propose building a 300-mile dam between Scotland and Norway? Is it mass extinctions of so many species? Is it asthma in our communities so that children do not know what it is to take the fullest and healthiest of breaths? Is it the coming down of the electrical grid that would leave those of us who have become so dependent on our technology adrift in a sea of relative isolation and irrelevant skills, frankly, or might, more importantly, block access to life-sustaining medicines or treatments that are dependent on refrigeration? Is it the deep corruption of civic institutions, a justice system doubling down on foundations of systemic racism, rising misogyny-fueled acts of violence, and the spreading of white Christian ethno-nationalism? We see this in small and unfortunately growing ways throughout the world. And so I invite you to think, as this morning's reading asks us to do, to point and look at that death knell collapse, this possible apocalypse, and see it as a possible lifting of a veil on a world that for too long has been saturated with greed and separation. A painful lifting of the veil, a chaotic one to be sure, one where there is real suffering. It is not metaphorical, it is not in any way poetic, but in which it may be necessary before our collective compass might return us to the deep and saving truth of our interdependence from which we have strayed so far. For that is, as our reading told us, the original meaning of apocalypse, not the end of the world, and definitely not Judgment Day. But if we go back to the original Greek, it's an unveiling, an uncovering, which is another way to say a revealing, a revelation, book of Revelation. And hence the title of that Christian scripture, which frankly barely made it into the Christian canon because there were so many apocalyptic writers who were writing about how we had strayed so far. People, learned people, naming corruption, speaking out against false gods, calling us to return to living within the limits of natural laws, calling us to return to living in balance with our home, the earth. We have our modern versions, a plethora of dystopian literature, some good and some less so, some that leave us only shaking and afraid, and some that actually offer us instruction and hope. We see it in books, we see it in movies. I think of the recent splash of that movie, Don't Look Up, with its storyline of the asteroid on track to hit the Earth, yet so many people continue to occupy themselves with their screens and their fake news and their materialistic consumption. But not all. Our times might have something in common with the times when the book of Revelation was written. So what if our facing an ecological apocalypse is not because we are facing so many forms of extinction, though we are, but because there is an invitation, an apocalyptic invitation to uncover falsities and return to right relationship with nature, with the planet, with other sentient beings, with each other. What if our task now in this moment that is not so much pre-apocalypse but mid-apocalypse, and we can ask many people in the world, including the residents of Ile-de-Jean-Charles in Louisiana, who have had to relocate en masse, a whole community, because their home of centuries is now drowning in salt and sinking into the sea. What if our task is to practice resilience rather than prep for survival? Practicing resilience now, because if we wait for additional or more frequent catastrophes to begin, it will be too late. Resilience is more than facing headaches from caffeine deprivation, though I think it's a worthy strategy, especially for a people, and I am looking at you, Unitarian Universalists, who claim coffee as our holy water. I want to share with you a definition of resilience. It comes from the Emotional Resilience Toolkit for Climate Work. It was created by a group of psychologists in the Pacific Northwest, and they call it, emotional resiliency includes increasing our capacity to bear witness to the difficulties we are facing, sharing our experiences with the support of others and through community care in order to increase that capacity for bearing witness. So that's one form of resilience. Colloquially, we often talk about resilience as the ability to bounce back. But what happens when there's no back to bounce to? So I want to offer a different way of thinking about resilience, thinking about it as the capacity to integrate disturbance and then reorganize, sometimes over and over and over again, in order to be able to function, build structures for shared living, and maintain a sense of identity. It's easier to say bounce back, but those three things, being able to integrate disturbance and reorganize for functioning, to build structures for shared living and maintain a sense of identity, is probably more realistic. I also want us to think about resilience as emergent, meaning we must prepare for it and we cannot prepare for it. It comes out of the process, it emerges out of the process of actually practicing it. It's paradoxical in that way, but it is nevertheless true. So we have resilience as the capacity to bear witness, not to turn away, not to take care of our own, but to look out in the world. The ability to integrate disturbance and then reorganize, and then to keep practicing and watching as it emerges. Most zombie apocalypse movies, books, and video games are predicated They have survival predicated on an abundance of shooting guns. As someone who grew up in rural Oregon with guns in my home, I want to say that I believe that equally as important to knowing how to shoot a gun is knowing when to shoot a gun and when not to. But even more so, it's knowing how to de-escalate a conflict among a group of people who are traumatized, freaked out, and reactive. A key capacity when it comes to community resilience. Growing our capacity to return to the table again and again and again when we experience conflict. This is something that we know in healthy congregations is essential to our going on, coming back even when we're frustrated, even when we're conflicted. So we're already practicing resilience when we practice covenant together. Resilience is also about our capacity to manage discomfort and strong emotions so that our behavior can be intentional rather than impulsive. Growing our resilience is about a capacity to connect across difference, especially with people not gathered together because of like-mindedness, but because of close proximity. And in this way, I believe we Unitarian Universalists can use our superpower of preemptive radical inclusion, of right now radical inclusion, to guard against the human tendency in the midst of resource scarcity to exclude and scapegoat and harm. We are already practicing resilience when we make sure to include and welcome over and over and over again. Chris Begley is a professor of anthropology in Lexington, Kentucky. He is also a wilderness survival instructor. And in 2019, he wrote an op-ed noting that even though he could teach people basic outdoor survival skills like how to make a shelter or a fire or how to orient oneself, and that these skills are actually helpful, beneficial, they don't hurt, the skills that one needs to survive collapse are these, and here are his words. We will not be by ourselves with only the people we choose, avoiding those we do not understand or trust. We will not be free from the need to cooperate and compromise. Begley goes on to say that while wilderness survival skills certainly can't hurt, it will be empathy, generosity, and courage that we need to survive. Kindness and fairness will be more valuable than any survival skill. Then, as now, social and leadership skills will be valued. Begley continues, we will have to work together, we will have to grow food, educate ourselves, and give people a reason to persevere. The needs will be enormous, and we cannot run away from that. Humans evolved attributes such as generosity, altruism, and cooperation because we need them to survive. Armed with those skills, we will turn towards the problem, not away from it. We will face the need. We will solve it together. That is our only option. That is what that wilderness instructor says we need to survive. So I invite us to reclaim apocalypse, admitting to ourselves and each other and the wider world that the great unraveling is in fact happening now. Let us strip away the lies of self-sufficiency and despair, finding our way back to the truth of our interconnectedness. Let us cultivate the kind of resilience that looks like courage, looks like connection, looks like compassion, looks like covenant. all of which we are going to need when the world looks a lot different than it does now. And as the poet at the beginning of the sermon said, if we are dying, then let us rip open and bleed love. Let us spill it. Let us spend it. Let us see how much there is. So be it. See to it. Amen.
Please rise in body or in spirit for extinguishing of the chalice and remain standing through the benediction. These words, to extinguish the chalice, come from the second half of the poem Remember by U.S. Poet Laureate Joy Harjo. Remember the earth whose skin you are, red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them, listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind, remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember you are all people and all people are you. Remember you are this universe and this universe is you. Remember all is in motion, is growing, is you. Remember language comes from this. Remember the dance language is, that life is, remember.
This is the benediction I share every Sunday with my congregation. My gift to you. May you know the blessing you already are. May you sense the blessing you yet can be. And may we all go out and be a blessing in the world.